Aryna Sabalenka just claimed the #1 seed at Wimbledon 2026. And yes, that headline alone would have been enough. But buried beneath that story is something the WTA world wasn't ready for. A 21-year-old from the Philippines just walked into the seatings at the All England Club and rewrote history so quietly that most people didn't even notice it happened. Until now. One woman is chasing the only Grand Slam that has escaped her. Another is chasing a dream that her entire country didn't dare to dream until she made them believe. 2 stories, 1 tournament, and the grass courts of Wimbledon are about to become the most compelling stage in women's tennis. Stay until the end, because what happened between these 2 stories this week will genuinely shock you.
To understand why Sabalenka getting the Wimbledon #1 seed matters so much, you have to understand what it means for a player who already has almost everything. Aryna Sabalenka remains the long undisputed world #1, a position she has held since October 2024. The 2026 Laureus World Sportswoman of the Year has now won 4 Grand Slam titles, including 3 singles trophies in a single season. Let that sink in. 4 Grand Slams, year-end #1 for 2 consecutive years. The kind of dominance that puts names in tennis history books forever. Olympics. Sabalenka opened 2025 as the WTA world #1 and never let go of the top spot. She was the tour's most dominant force, lifting 4 trophies, Brisbane, Miami, Madrid, and the US Open, and finishing with a 63-12 record, the most wins of any player that year. Those are numbers that belong in the conversation with the greatest seasons in women's tennis history. Tennis.com. And yet, Aryna Sabalenka holds the world #1 ranking and is the women's #1 seed, despite never winning at SW19, her biggest remaining prize. That is the one sentence that defines everything about her 2026 Wimbledon campaign, the one ghost she hasn't been able to exercise, the one court where her thunderous ground strokes haven't yet translated into championship glory. Tennis Championship Wimbledon. She has only competed at Wimbledon in 3 of the prior 5 tournaments, ending at the semifinals in each one. The Belarusian is going for glory or bust, with a first major title away from hard courts the aim. Tennis up to date. Semifinals every single time. Close enough to smell it, not close enough to hold it. There is something poetic and painful about that particular kind of excellence, being the best player in the world and watching the one prize you want most stay just out of reach. Breaking the financial barrier and becoming only the 7th player in WTA history to stay on top of the rankings throughout an entire year, May 2025, despite some close losses and missed opportunities, a season to remember for Sabalenka. But records and prize money don't quiet the voices that ask, can she do it on grass? Last word on tennis. That question will be answered at the 139th Championships, starting June 29th. Aryna Sabalenka faces Teodora Kostovic on center court on day 1 of Wimbledon 2026, a Grand Slam debut for the qualifier, the full weight of the world ranking for the #1 seed. The contrast couldn't be more cinematic. Tennis Temple. Sabalenka is the story, but she's not the only one. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about the name that everyone in the WTA world was scrambling to say correctly just 18 months ago, because the real earthquake at Wimbledon 2026 didn't happen on center court. It happened in the seedings list.
Picture this. It's 2024. Alexandra Eala, a young woman from the Philippines, is fighting through qualifying rounds, just trying to get into the Wimbledon main draw. She doesn't make it. The doors are closed. The grass courts of SW19 are not for her. Not yet. At Wimbledon 2025, Eala made an early exit following a 6-3, 2-6, 1-6 loss to Barbora Krejcikova in the round of 128, a first-round exit in her Wimbledon debut. For many players, that experience plants seeds of doubt. For Eala, it planted something else entirely. GMA News Online. Alexandra Eala was born on May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines. She achieved a career-high singles ranking of world #29 by the WTA on March 16, 2026, making her the highest-ranked Filipino in WTA Tour history. Eala is the first Filipino to break into the WTA Top 30, have multiple wins over top 10 players and major champions, and reach a tour-level final in the Open era. Wikipedia. Read that again slowly. The first Filipino in the entire Open era. Not since women's tennis became the global powerhouse it is today has a player from the Philippines reached these heights? Eala isn't just making history for herself. She is carrying the weight of an entire nation's sporting identity on her shoulders, and she is doing it at 21 years old. How fast did this rise actually happen? Eala was world number 138 at the start of 2025 and made a big leap up the rankings after her breakthrough season, with her run to the semifinals and her opening event of the new year in Auckland, allowing her to break into the top 50 of the WTA rankings for the first time. Tennis 365. From 138 in the world to knocking on the top 30's door in less than 18 months. That is not a trajectory. That is a rocket launch. Her breakout 2025 season saw her break into the top 100 after a semifinal run at WTA 1000 Miami, where as a wild card, she registered back-to-back top 10 wins over number 5 Keys and number 2 Swiatek. She went on to reach her maiden tour final at Eastbourne and then won her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. Her year-end ranking was a career-high number 50, WTA. She beat the world number 2 as a wild card without even being seeded in the tournament, and that was still only the beginning. Here's the part that stopped even the experts cold, because 2026 didn't slow Eala down. It launched her even higher.
If 2025 was the year the tennis world first noticed Alexandra Eala, then the summer of 2026 is the moment they couldn't look away. The start of the grass court swing came with a huge boost for Eala, who won her second WTA 125 title after ruling the Birmingham Open. She reached the round of 16 of the HSBC Championships before making another strong run in the Berlin Tennis Open, where she defeated 2 top 10 opponents en route to a semifinal appearance. Let's slow down on that for a second. 2 top 10 wins in a WTA 500 event, on grass, back-to-back, in the lead-up to Wimbledon. Greg Rosetsky pointed out that Eala made an impressive feat by defeating Rybakina and Svitolina. Elena Rybakina, the Wimbledon champion of 2022, Elena Svitolina, a former top 5 player and Wimbledon semifinalist. Eala defeated both of them in sequence at the Berlin Open. And this is where the WTA world started sitting up very straight in their chairs. Alex Eala will be a seeded player in a Grand Slam for the first time in her career, as she climbs to number 30 in the latest WTA rankings, following her superb run in the Berlin Open. With Wimbledon determining its seedings based on the June 22 rankings, the 21-year-old will enter the tournament as the 29th seed and will receive a first-round bye. A first-round bye at Wimbledon? For the girl who couldn't even get through qualifying 2 years ago. Greg Rosetsky concluded, "For Eala, the ball doesn't get up too high on grass, and it gives a little bit more time, and the ball stays through, especially with her game. So I think this is where she makes her best chance to go really deep at a major." When former ATP professionals start saying things like that about you in the lead up to Wimbledon, something is shifting. The narrative is changing. And in the Philippines, it wasn't just shifting, it was exploding. Her breakthrough at the 2025 Miami Open established her as one of the Philippines' most prominent athletes, drawing comparisons to Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, the greatest boxer his country ever produced, the name every Filipino child grows up knowing. And now, a 21-year-old tennis player from Quezon City is being mentioned in the same breath. That is the weight of what Eala is carrying into SW19. That is the electricity that follows her every time she walks onto a court. But wait, because this is where the two stories collide. Because both Sabalenka and Eala are seated at Wimbledon 2026. One at the very top, one near the bottom, and the draw just came out. Keep watching. On June 26, 2026, the Wimbledon draw ceremony took place. The Wimbledon 2026 draw took place on Friday, June 26, at 10 a.m. EST, streamed live on Wimbledon's official channels. Aryna Sabalenka is the women's #1 seed. And right there, in that seedings list that was published alongside it, at position 29, was the name Alexandra Eala. The women's seeds for Wimbledon 2026 confirmed. 1. Aryna Sabalenka. 2. Ilyana Rybakina. 3. Iga Swiatek. 4. Jessica Pegula. 5. Mira Andreeva. 29. Alex Eala. The 29th seed, in a Grand Slam, for the very first time in her career. For most players, being the 29th seed at Wimbledon is a solid achievement. You're in the draw, you're protected, you get a first-round bye. Fine. Good. Move on. But for a player from the Philippines, for the first Filipino ever to earn a Grand Slam seeding in the Open era, this is a moment that belongs in a history book. It belongs in the highlight reel that someone will show decades from now,
when they explain how tennis was conquered by a country that nobody had penciled in. Eala spoke to Tennis 365 about how she is handling the expectations that now rest on her shoulders. "I think I have done a good job, and my team have done a good job of dealing with everything that happened after Miami," she said. "So many things changed, and my perspective has changed since Miami, but my day-to-day life is the same. I have the same work ethic and the same attention to detail." That is the kind of answer that separates champions from one-hit wonders. The humility, the grounded focus, the refusal to let the noise become the story. And then there's what she said about the people who matter most to her. "I am lucky that my family played such a big role in my career, and they have been so important to me so far. They built the structure for me. They built the path I walked on. That was the start I needed to start my career. For me, family is such a crucial part of who I am." In a sport that so often rewards the loudest voice in the room, Eala's quiet confidence is disarming. It is also terrifying for her opponents. Because the players who know who they are and where they come from, those are the hardest players to stop. Meanwhile, Sabalenka carries her own version of that pressure. As emotional a player as Sabalenka can be, it has been her tenacity that has defined her reign atop the women's game. Her base level is so high that conversations of improvement come down to little tweaks, but those tweaks could make the difference in a big stage final. 2 women, 1 tournament, different mountains to climb, the same fierce determination to reach the top. Because here's what this all comes down to, and this is the part that makes Wimbledon 2026 unlike any women's event in recent memory.
Let's talk about what's actually at stake when these women walk through the gates of the All England Club. For Sabalenka, it is the last frontier. World #1 Aryna Sabalenka is the top seed in the Wimbledon 2026 women's singles as she goes in search of her first title at SW19 and first Grand Slam away from the hard courts. 4 Grand Slams on hard courts, 0 on grass, 0 on clay. Wimbledon is not just another tournament for her. It is the answer to the question that follows her everywhere she goes. Is she a complete champion? Or is she the greatest player in the world who just happens to only dominate one surface? The draw puts some formidable obstacles in her path. Sabalenka has 4th seed Jessica Pegula in her half. Newly minted French Open champion Mira Andreeva sits in Sabalenka's quarter as the 5th seed. The road to the Wimbledon final for the world #1 runs straight through youth, power, and talent. There is no easy path. For Eala, the stakes are different, and in some ways even higher. A year earlier, in 2024, Eala was within reach of the main tournament, but was stopped in the last round of qualifications. However, Wimbledon 2026 brings a new story for the Filipina player. The symmetry of that is almost too perfect for a documentary. The girl who couldn't get in 2 years ago, now seeded, now protected, now given a first-round bye on the same grass courts that once turned her away. And she hasn't arrived quietly. All 3 events in Birmingham, London, and Berlin form part of ELS preparations for the grass court season's main event, Wimbledon. Her record on the surface this year stands at 9-2, 9 wins and 2 losses on grass in 2026. That is the form line of a player who belongs at this tournament, not as an interesting story, not as a feel-good underdog, as a genuine contender. The tennis world has been forced to reckon with that. Experts who were politely curious about Eala a year ago are now watching her matches with something closer to urgency, because the possibility is becoming undeniable. What if she goes deep at Wimbledon? What if the 29 seed from the Philippines makes a run that nobody can explain and everyone will remember? Her historic rise into the top 30 of the WTA rankings confirms the consolidation of a player who has already become a reference for sport in the Philippines and who continues to push the boundaries of what once seemed possible. And, as her journey so far suggests, the best chapters of Alex Eala's story are still yet to be written, and Wimbledon 2026 is the next page. This is what women's tennis looks like in 2026. No single dominant story, no guaranteed outcome. Just 2 extraordinary women, completely different journeys, and the most storied grass court in the world waiting to decide whose chapter gets written next. Sabalenka has the ranking, Eala has the momentum, Wimbledon has the stage, and we have front row seats to all of it. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because we're going to be covering every dramatic twist of Wimbledon 2026 as it happens. New videos dropping throughout the tournament. You do not want to miss what comes next.